Welcome, thanks for coming. My name is Rick Bravor. I'm director of the Sandbulte Center for Ethical Leadership in our School of Business and Technology. This event is sponsored by the Sandbulte Center. The center was created through a gift from Minnesota Power to honor its retiring chairman and CEO, Sandy Sandbulte. This speech is part of a continuing series this academic year that focuses on leadership at the CEO and board level. I'm delighted to introduce our speaker today, Jim Hoolihan. Jim is president of Industrial Lubricant Company in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. He also serves on the Elite Board of Directors, and he's a trustee for the Blandin Foundation. Some of his previous experience includes he was president and CEO of the Blandin Foundation, and he also served as mayor of Grand Rapids. Jim is a longtime friend of CSS. He served on our board of trustees, and also, as I mentioned, he serves on the Elite Board and the Blandin Board, and they have been very supportive of Scholastica over the years. Jim holds a law degree from William Mitchell, a master's of business degree from the University of Minnesota, and a bachelor's degree in economics from Notre Dame. Jim, thanks for speaking to our group today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and would apologize in advance. I came to dress up today and have a tie and have a coat, and 12.5 minutes ago, after parking my car, I went to the back seat and pulled the coat and tie out, and I forgot it. It's at home. I know right where it is. It's on the hanger next to the door, so I wouldn't forget it. But I appreciate, again, the opportunity. When I was at the Blandin Foundation, one of the things I really enjoyed was public speaking and interacting with folks that I had that opportunity to do so. Now that I'm back to our family business, Industrial Lubricant Company, as a grease salesman, I don't get a lot of opportunities and requests to give speeches and for people hanging on every word. So this is nice to be able to do this, and I appreciate it. I understand that El Hayek, CEO of Minnesota Power, and Lee's been in, Dr. Peter Person has been in, folks that are leading and responsible for large organizations. And when I get to the work piece of my story, it will be from a much smaller organization. So you'll have the opportunity to compare and contrast, see what's different, see if there are any themes or challenges that in fact are the same, regardless of the size of the organization. I'm going to try to follow the script. Sometimes I do that better than others, working towards the last two questions which intrigue me. Questions being, what ethical issues do I deal with, big or small, and to share an ethical experience. So we'll get there and try to do it on a timely basis. But to get there from here, I'm first going to attempt to answer as quickly as I can the questions that were posed first. The first question was, what's my career path, and what three things have I learned? My career path starts in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, about 80 miles from here. I'm guessing some of you might be from the range or from Grand Rapids. I grew up mowing lawns, shoveling snow, taking inventory at our family business. I grew up doing the same kind of jobs for neighbors and family and friends that you did. I grew up in a family that valued education. My mom went to St. Kate's. She was from two harbors. My dad went to St. Mary's. He was from Grand Rapids. And they valued Catholic education. And I grew up knowing that I would go to college. That was the expectation, and that I would go to a Catholic school. I had an opportunity, as mentioned, to get an undergraduate degree at Notre Dame and a graduate degree at University of Minnesota and William Mitchell. My first real-world adult job was with the Carlson Companies as a market analyst for less than a year. That meant I looked in magazines and went to the library to provide data for the decision makers. At age 26, with those degrees, I came back to northern Minnesota, came back to Grand Rapids with my wife, who was my high school sweetheart, because I wanted to come back to our family business, which sells grease, oil, pumps to the mining companies, to railroads, to loggers in Minnesota. The company at that time had 15 employees. My dad was 70. My sisters had been married to two great guys out of town, and the expectation was I would come back to the family business that my mom and dad both started out of my sister's bedroom in 1942. So that's kind of my story to get to Grand Rapids. As in the introduction was mentioned, I had an opportunity to be mayor for 3 terms, 6 years in Grand Rapids after having been back to Industrial Loop for 10 years. That kind of raised my profile, kind of raise your hand and say, you know, I can do that, or I think I can do that. And because of that experience, I had an opportunity to go to the Blandon Foundation and was the president and CEO there for 7 years, which was a longer run than I had planned or hoped for, and then back to our family business as chair of the board and a leader there. So that's kind of the story. The question was, what have I learned through that story? And here's a few things that I've learned. I've learned that I have benefited by being encouraged to dream broadly about the how. I don't mean to be too academic or too splitting of the atom here, but the point I want to make is I learned to dream not about the what, but to first dream about the how. How did I want to live? What community, what job would sync with my competencies, my values? Did I want to live in a city, or did I want to live in rural? Did I want to live alone, or did I want to live as a member of a family? Did I want to live in a very competitive, no-holds-barred environment on Wall Street or New York, or did I want to live in a community where I was more accountable, had more support, and had a different pace? So that's kind of the first thing that I learned when I was asked to look back and share. I didn't know that at the time. What I knew at the time was I valued the community of Grand Rapids, I valued the family, I valued the business opportunity that was in front of me. I knew that I didn't have the skill set or competency to be in the medical field, but I did have a vision of how I wanted to live. So that would be a suggestion that I might offer you, to think about how it is you want to live, as opposed to what specifically it is that you want to do. The second thing that I would reflect on in my journey is that throughout it all, I both sought and I accepted help from others. There's always the backstory, so I get a little embarrassed when I hear the front story. Notre Dame, William Mitchell, University of Minnesota, elite mayor, Blandon, industrial lubricant company. The backstory is more important, and the backstory is my story. I grew up in a family with my mom and dad that set the trailhead for me to get all the education I could. I grew up in a family where my mom and dad, by hard work, had the resources and paid for my college, my law school, and my grad degree. I grew up in a family where my mom and dad went to work every day and provided the modeling and the opportunity for me to go back to industrial lubricant company. Today, I understand that that's called privilege, and that was my story. That's what I had teed up for me. My mom volunteered her time at St. Joseph's Catholic School. She taught English and she taught social studies, half days, signed a check over to the school at the end of that, and that had a huge influence on me. I had friends that guided me along the way. I have a wife who allowed me to run for mayor. We had 3 kids at the time. What if she had said, I think you really ought to be here, and I think you ought to be paying attention to the business. She did say that, but she also said, if that's what you want to do, we'll make it work. Running out of breath, so here I go. When I had the opportunity to go to the Blandon Foundation, the struggle was, should I leave our family business? That was a hurdle. I was competent or confident that I could do the job, but didn't want to leave our family business. My wife is an RN, degree from St. Kate's. I asked, she took some time to think and said yes, she would step up. She would step up and lead our company while I was gone. So my point there is that how is it I get to be here today? How is it I get to have the story that I have and that I'm sharing. And when I reflect on it, it is because throughout my career, I have been fortunate and blessed to have both asked for and received the help from others. My third and final reflection, how it was that I got here and that I would like to share, comes from Woody Allen. And I suppose that at St. Scholastica I should come up with a better, bigger thinker than that. But I think it was Woody Allen, you can correct me, who said 90% of life is showing up. Maybe it was Woody Allen who said you really only need to be 5 minutes ahead of everybody else. But I think it was 90% of life is showing up. So my third reflection in my life and that I would share is persistence. Be persistent. So again, there's the story. I went to law school. Truth is, don't tell anybody at William Mitchell, I applied to 4 law schools, 3 turned me down, Mitchell said yes. I had a chance to go to the University of Minnesota. I applied to Wharton, University of Chicago, Duke. The only one that would have me was the University of Minnesota. I applied when I thought I had an opportunity to move outside of Industrial Lubricant Company to be Iron Range Resource Commissioner. Twice. 2 governors. Both said no. One didn't even reply. That would be Governor Ventura. Thanks for asking. The business story is a story of persistence, too. Time's really clicking. So if you fast forward to today, Industrial Lubricant's story would be we have 140 employees. We have warehouses, service centers, locations in Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Texas, and Canada. In 1979, when I got back to work, we had 15 employees and we were making money selling to the Iron Range. 2 years to the day, my dad died of a heart attack. And about 12 to 18 months after that, your folks would recall, the Iron Range in Duluth went into a serious recession. Many of the steel companies went through a bankruptcy and a reorganization. And at one time, I believe 7 of the 8 taconite customers that were our customers were shut down. They were laying people off and people were leaving the area. I'd gone from being a salesman under my dad to being president of the company. And the short version is I laid people off, I fired people who wouldn't come back, we downsized, we liquidated inventory, we took part of our building and rented it out. Times were bleak for everybody on the range and in Duluth. And I recall the uncertainty. You just didn't know. At the time I was 30, we had a child, we had gone from the cities back to Grand Rapids, run the family business, and things didn't look very good. We rented our house. We didn't sell it. My wife and I and 4-year-old at the time moved to Casper, Wyoming. We bought the building. My wife worked in the office. She answered the phone. She drove the forklift. I made sales calls, and things started to work. We both had probably not the awareness at the time of how we wanted to live, but we wanted to live around the family. We wanted to live in a small town. We wanted to get back to northern Minnesota. And the range came back. The Wyoming business was doing okay. We hired someone to run it, and we came back to Grand Rapids. The lesson there, as I think back, is your weakness can become your strength. It happened in our case. Our challenge was our Minnesota business fell apart. My sisters wanted their money, justifiably so. We were losing money. We had to do something. And we went to Wyoming where there were a number of mines, and we developed a business. Because we had to do that, what we found was we had a competency around developing a business outside of Grand Rapids, outside of the Iron Range, selling to mining companies. And that gave us the model or template to do that in North Dakota, in Saskatchewan, in Texas, and elsewhere. So at the time, it didn't look very good. At the time, it didn't feel very good. but it turned out actually to be something that helped us and became a strength. So my assignment was, but 3 things that I learned and wanted to share, and I would share, be persistent. I think there's no substitute for it. Things don't go right. Things don't go on your schedule. They didn't go on my schedule. And we're not in charge of that. But I think if we keep at it, things can tend to work out. Seek and accept help from others. We don't do anything ourselves. And those that tell me I did it alone, I don't think are ever telling the full story. And dream broadly. Dream, have a vision about how you want to live, not specifically what it is you want to do. I'm moving on. There was another assignment about sharing what important characteristics that leaders have. One of the best sayings I like is, if I'm a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, I want to share, be persistent, dream broadly, seek and accept help from others. But to get a better grade in this assignment, I'd throw in a couple of other things. I'm guessing if you're like I am, you are not going to remember what I say. You may remember who this guy was that came to visit, that sold grease and had this story. But I'm betting you remember the next piece, and that's a who, and that's Pope Francis. A little different spectrum there than Woody Allen. And I don't mention Pope Francis because we're at a Catholic college at Scholastica. 3-4 days ago, I got an email from a CEO of a Minnesota company, countrywide, $50 million. He's not Catholic, and the Pope Francis article was not about theology or our Catholic faith. It was about Pope Francis as a leader, and it came from a CEO titled magazine. And here's what they say succinctly about Pope Francis as a leader. Number one, he changed the conversation. With his statement, we can't go forward if we can't talk. He changed the conversation from where it had been. Secondly, as a leader, he changed the tone with that famous one sentence, one question, who am I to judge? What a change that was. And thirdly, he connected with people. He didn't wear the special red shoes. He wore black shoes, like all of us. He didn't have someone drive him around. He drives himself in a very old car. And he didn't live in the palatial type of apartment where the previous popes had lived. He lives in a very small apartment. He changed the conversation. He changed the tone. He was humble enough to connect with people. And I would offer, if you are thinking about leadership, if you're thinking about how to manage others or a crew or yourself, think about how Pope Francis is doing it with humility, by naming reality, by creating hope and creating a better future. So those are almost the assignment. We're going to get to the ethical part here, I promise. There was one more, offer specific advice, and it would go along these lines in addition to the leadership kind of conversations that we've had. The first would be to develop a core competency. It might be as a nurse, it might be as an accountant, it might be as a finance person. I did it with a law degree. Forget about what those slackers, Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg did. Develop a core competency, get a college degree. The dad in me says, do it right here. My second piece of advice is be likable. Now, that's probably not something that great philosophers of the world have offered. And I'm guessing that hasn't filled, let alone libraries, perhaps even one volume or one book. But it's heartfelt advice that comes from a 62-year-old asked to respond to the question, what specific advice could I give? And I repeat, be likable. You can be the best accountant in the building. You can be the best nurse on the floor. You can be the brightest finance guru at wherever you are. And if you're not likable, if you're prickly, if people don't want to work with you, so what? Have a core competency and be likable. That doesn't mean you have to be a winner, but it means you need to have enough confidence and enough goodness to get along. So the last two questions, kind of on track. We got about 10 more minutes. The question was to share some ethical situations, big or small, and then to share an ethical situation that I dealt with. When we're done, I'll hand out a one-pager, if you want, pick it up, that talks about our company's culture. And we say here that we are fair, ethical, and honest. And we put it in writing. And it's on our wall at all of our buildings. Every new employee that comes gets this and gets a conversation with my wife and me. We say, black on white, we have integrity in all that we do. We state we will comply with regulations and laws, and we say we will compensate ourselves fairly. So, big or small, I don't know how to answer that. Let me share a couple of situations, and you tell me. So, we have an employee, a serviceman, who works for us, does a great job, works hard, has a company pickup and a company credit card. As we kind of reviewed the gas purchases at the end of the month over a course of a period of time, we noted that his gas purchases were higher than anybody else doing the same job. We dug into it. Our manager knew the owner of where he was buying his gas and just raised the issue. Short story is, the video was shared, and we saw where an industrial lubricant truck with our employee, when he's done gassing our truck, would fill his wife's vehicle. Is that a big ethical dilemma, or is that a little ethical dilemma? So, in our business, a big deal is when we get a new line. We're not like a grocery store where we have 1,000 customers at $100 a pop. We'll have one customer at $1 million a pop over the course of a year. So it's a big deal when we get a new customer. A number of years ago, not on the Iron Range, we picked up a new mining customer. The people that can make or break us are maintenance managers on the floor in the pit. One of the new maintenance managers said to our salesman, as we're delivering new product, this can go very well for you, or not. My wife and I love to go to the professional basketball games in town. We even love to have a nice meal beforehand. This can go well for you or not. Same mind, same day, another supervisor approaches our salesman and says, with a catalog and a picture of a shotgun, this is a really nice gun. I have a son graduating. I'd like to get him this gun. Here's my home address. Are those big ethical dilemmas, or are they small? Help me out. I'm struggling here.
I think maybe face value, they seem kind of small, but in reality, how you respond to that really will reflect your core values. So it is pretty big.
So you hire people, you got a couple of trucks on order, you get geared up for a new account. Shotgun is $500. What do you do?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
It depends on, I guess it would depend on how, I mean, are they talking about not giving you business if you don't do that?
Didn't say that. Said this can go really well, or not.
Well, maybe if I was in that situation, to make the manager feel better, I would take it out of my pocket to do that.
I say no.
How come?
Because your core values, your culture is being fair, ethical, and honest. And if you don't abide by your own core values, how can you expect somebody else to abide by and respect your company with those core values it can have a domino effect. Sure, you might be doing it just to appease them and get the business, but who's to say they're not gonna go and do that with somebody else, and then you've compromised your own moral integrity by off the core values that your business stand
But-
for.
I appreciate that very much. But what about dinner? What about dinner and a basketball game?
I think that if you're gonna treat prospective, clients to things like that, I think that, I mean, that could be a tax write-off. I mean, I think that's okay, but I just, you know, you're schmoozing the client, but I just don't think that, that would, you know, go against your values.
What about, thank you, good thinking. What about the fellow at Vista Lubricant who's filling his wife's vehicle with our gas and our money? Is that an ethical dilemma? Any advice? Help me.
Me or him?
You.
I would say it is because you give them your company credit card thinking that they were just use it towards company purchases.
What would you do? You've got evidence. What do you owe him? What would you do? He's a really good guy and a good worker, and he just stole. That's fact.
You could make him either pay it back or take it out of his salary.
I don't trust him anymore. I can have him pay us back, but what about the trust?
You would have to take away the company card, the credit card too.
Now we can't get to work. Knowing this Lou guy
But he
works
has
at our
his
shop,
rights
we
to
always go out to the customer. You have to have the right to get out to the customer. How about big or small? Anybody have an opinion? Are those big dilemmas or small ethical dilemmas? We're not talking about a lot of money. Take the gas, shotgun, tickets to a ball game. I'm running out of time. I spent too much time talking about me. I apologize. I wish I could do it over again. We did not buy anyone a shotgun. We did not take the fella to the basketball game or the dinner. We lost the account. It was huge. It is one of my biggest business disappointments, and it's not, for exactly the reason that you said. It's a slippery slope. And if that was their ethics, it would never stop. It would be a shotgun today and 2 shotguns tomorrow. And I'm proud of how our salesmen handled it. Because I asked, what did you do? Some of our salesmen will pay out of their own pocket. That's a reasonable option, but not at that level of $200. In the old days, we had a family fishing camp, we still own it, in Ontario, that we would fly iron miners into, fish for a long weekend, and out of. It was what was expected. If you were selling to the mines in Minnesota, you took people fishing or hunting. Was that fair? Yes, it was the culture and expectation of the time. The mines knew it, Cleveland and Pittsburgh knew it, we knew it, and if we didn't take an iron miner fishing, we wouldn't sell a pound of grease. But it was the culture and ethics of the time. That changed. We got letters from corporate offices about not doing that, and we welcomed that. It was a great area. So I guess my point in the ethical scenarios that we've had is I think there's a reason that there is a gray color crayon in our color crayon box. In my work life, 90% of the time, I find things to be gray, not black and white. I always know the answer. Thank you for the opportunity to visit. I apologize I took so much time on this. It's all about me. And if you don't remember a thing, please, not Woody Allen, Pope Francis. And my final comment would be when we're talking about ethical situations, I think usually it depends. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Jim? Questions?
Yes, sir. Oh, go ahead.
Whatever happened with the stolen gas?
I was gonna ask.
Great. And I'm sorry I didn't get back to that. we fired him. And it wasn't about the $100 of gas, really, because we have had situations where we've asked, where we've laid out the facts and been paid back. It was about trust, and it was about how he handled it. But the short answer to your question is, we couldn't trust him, and we fired him. It was also related to everybody else in it. If we let him go, and everybody knew it, because he was, as it turned out, kind of bragging about what he was doing, we really started again on that slippery slope of not watching our top. Appreciate the question. Was there another one?
So with the accounts that you did not take out to dinner or buy
Yeah.
the second for, was that because you didn't want them to continue to ask?
Love the question.
Or I guess what was
Yeah.
on your mind?
You know, what was on our mind was it wasn't who we were. And we don't do that. And that would be different. But your question stopped me for a little bit, because that was a part of it. If we said yes to that, something else would follow. Now, I wasn't personally involved in that one, but our manager and salesmen who were, I still work with every day. They're still in our shop. And they brag on that story. They still tell the story. And I'm proud of them for that. And as they tell it, both then and now, they say that they told, they first played dumb, like I didn't hear you. And then when it came again, said, that's just not who we are. We just don't do that. So that was, that was most of it. But part of it was, and they've said so since, once you start, where does it end?
Could you draw the line though? Because especially if you're in an early business relationship.
Yeah. I don't think so. And maybe there are other opinions. I don't think so. This was someone not too long ago about folks that are in the federal prison camp in Duluth. And this is not a personal story that I had a conversation with someone. But the recap was, the folks that are there, they didn't start out at 100,000 or $1 million fraud. It started out small, and then it was more along the lines of be 90 glad. I'm just gonna, I know that, but I'm gonna move on. That's not right, but I'm gonna do something else. So that may be the most provocative, helpful question of the whole day, or of the whole week. Can you stop once you say yes? I'd say no, and I'll bet people who get in trouble look back and say, I always thought I could stop. I always thought I could draw the line and find where that is. But once I got into it, how do you do that? Love the questioning.
Jim, in our classes, we probably don't talk enough about serving on boards, but you're on two very important boards. What are like a couple of the top responsibilities as a board member?
Sure. Well, the first one is, as they kind of say with a little bit of humor, hiring, firing, care, and feeding of the CEO. And I say that with a smile, but also all seriousness, because boards are charged with not running the profit or the for-profit entity on a day-to-day basis. You're hiring a professional, competent, likable CEO to do that. So that's job one, finding the right leader that matches her or his values to the values of the organization. The competency is easy. We have an accounting degree, we have a finance certificate, we have credentials that we can validate. But the soft stuff, the secret sauce stuff, the passion, the DNA, finding the fit for a leader to run an organization characterized as hire, fire, care, and feeding. Part of it would be providing feedback, like in my industrial lube example, to great CEOs that throw their energy and passion and life into leading an organization and get wore out. Great people, great job, wore out. And that's the art or hard part on the hire fired piece. The other, of course, is to set strategy, set the vision, set the strategy, set the purpose, reaffirm the purpose, the values of the organization. Sounds soft and fuzzy, sounds like it's got some gray, the most critical part that's done, so that the CEO and the staff know the vision, know the horizon, know the how, the values, and day-to-day drive the organization to accomplish that. The other piece would be the, what do they say, eyeballs in, fingers out, not grab the wheel, not run the shop. I'm kind of in transition at our shop with our 30-something generation coming in that are about to become the president. We just had a conversation a couple of days ago. What's his role? What's my role? He's being very candid with me.
How was your transition from going from being a board member, say at Landon, to becoming CEO?
Thank you. I'm probably the last one in the world to offer an objective comment on that. But my honest comment, with some feedback from others, is that it went okay. And it went okay because of the clear governance structure that was at Blandon before I was there. And I would jealously talk at our family business, especially when we had a bad month or bad year, about the resources and luxury that the Blandon Foundation had for governance and management education. But there was a real clear culture and protocol at Blandon, what the governance role was and what the staff role was. And I had a great boss, a great chair of the board, who was very candid and very clear, who lived out of town. So he'd go back to Rochester after the board meetings. And there was enough to do. I mean, a little, not creative enough, but turning the lights on, getting coffee made, turning the lights out at the end of the day. There was work that just consumed and overwhelmed us as a staff. That wasn't policy. It was implementing policy and objectives that the board had laid out. So, last one to know, but I think it went fairly well. The more interesting one might have been, the story to go from Blandon at its peak, $500 million, and lots of staff and lots of support, and a few requests to give a speech, back to our family business. And I found myself at age 58 doing what I had done at age 30. Lots of sales calls, lots of engagement with great, minded people back in the competitive world, and really enjoying it. And I think it's true. God has a weird sense of humor. He had me back at nearly 60 doing what I'd done at 30.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.